Happy Sunday and welcome to Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. I'm your host, Rose October. Thank you for joining. I want to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the program before moving forward. For those of you who are joining for the first time, be informed that Arts, Culture, and Things in Between is a program that features individuals who are gatekeepers of our arts and culture. They are not only performing artists, but also teachers, advocates, and scholars who focus on the preservation of the arts and culture. When arts is mentioned, it is being referred to as different art forms like visual, applied, and performing arts. Examples of visual arts are painting, sculpting, filming, photographing. Examples of applied arts are, as in designing, and architecture, working on constructing or building a project. Other examples of applied arts would be fashion designing, working with different types of patterns and fabrics, jewelry designing, working with materials such as wood, plastic, metal, silver, and gold, in addition to working with the various types of stones. Furniture designing, such as working with the different types of woods, the ways that the woods are cut, and designing. Then there is performing arts, like music, theater, opera, drama, singing, stand-up comedy, and dance. Culture is the middle part of the name of the program. Arts, culture, and things in between. When culture is mentioned, it generally means the way of life for a particular group of people. So for this program, it is inclusive to mean the various groups of individuals that embrace ways of life. In other words, looking at attitudes and behaviors. What is important to note is that as culture is mentioned, I'm really looking at how practices are passed from one generation to another. Things in between. The last part of the name of the program has to do with life's issues that affect the execution of the arts and cultural practices. This involves both positive and negative experiences that become part of the creative process. Today's guest is a little bit of each, and I'll leave you to determine that. But before I go forward, let me share the bio. Rudy Bishop is a Guyanese musical icon who has been in the business of music for 58 years. He was once called an indefatigable hustler, entrepreneur, missionary, diplomat, conductor, a veritable steel band Moses by the Guyanese author and journalist, another icon, the late Godfrey Chin. Rudy was born in Pike Street, Kitty, in Georgetown, Guyana, in South America. He attended Walker Preparatory School, Kingston Methodist School, and Kuru Kuru College. He later spent 2 years at the University of Guyana. In the 1970s and 80s, he worked for the Ministry of National Development for 5 years before being seconded to Guyana Pharmaceutical Corporation, where he was a manager. In 1966, the same year that Guyana gained her independence from British Guyana and became the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel Orchestra was born. In the early 60s, Rudy played with two steel bands, Altura, followed by Skylarks. His experience with Skylarks ended after a performance when there was a financial disagreement amongst members. As it turned out, Rudy left the Panyard and went to the bandstand on the seawall that overlooked the Atlantic Ocean, not too far away. It was from this experience that the name Atlantic came into focus, along with Rudy's desire to embrace the symphonies. Hence, the initial name of the band, Guyana Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel Orchestra. In 1972, the first Caribbean festival, Carifesta, was held in Guyana. It was then that the Steel Band Association put on a competition in search for the best band to arrange and interpret the Carifesta theme song that was composed by Malcolm Kurika, also known as Mighty Canary. Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel Orchestra was on the map as the winner of the first Carifesta track song. Later in the 70s, with his plan to make a difference in steel band music, Rudy became the organizing secretary of the Steel Band Association. In 1972, as the band leader of Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel Orchestra, Rudy worked closely with the then tuner Philbert Moore, but they decided to eventually end that relationship and they both moved on. In 1973, Desmond Fraser, a member of the Police Band, became the musical director of the Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel Orchestra. He was not only the arranger of the band, but was also responsible for adding the brass section that comprised 2 trombones and 3 trumpets. In 1975, Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel Orchestra became Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel and Brass Orchestra, CASPO. It is to be noted, in 1973, Rudy moved the band from the Seawall Campton located in Campbellville, an area in Georgetown. This establishment catered to the Panyard, the home of the band. It also facilitated a youth, sports, and cultural organization that allowed for harnessing the energies of the youth. Campton provided many with scholarships for sports-related activities. Rudy was forced to make a decision to add a dance troupe to CASPO. In 1976, the band was part of the contingent that represented Guyana at the second Carifesta hosted by Cuba. At that time, CASPO did not have its own dance troupe, and the Cuban dance professor, Geraldo Lastra, of the Guyana National Dance Company, another group that was part of the Guyanese contingent at Carifesta that year. In 1978, CASPO went to Brazil, again with the Guyana National Dance Company, this time headed by Daphne Rogers. Later, on a trip to Suriname, Rudy asked Lynette Dolphin, the chairman of culture for the dancers of the Guyana National Dance Company, to accompany his band, and his request was rejected. This prompted Rudy to ask Don Schultz, a dancer with the company, who was also a singer, to join CASPO. She did, and became the band's lead female vocalist. Upon the band's return from Suriname, Rudy approached the dancer Neil Heelwood to pull a dance troupe together. And this is how CASPO's dance troupe was birthed. Many well-known dancers and choreographers have worked with CASPO's dance troupe, including the late guru of Kathak, Philip McClintock. CASPO expanded and included musicians vocalists, dancers, and actors, and became a cultural and artistic entity of itself in its own right. Some of the actors included Ezria Jill, Margaret Lawrence, Jasper Adams, Leon Saul, and the late Andres O'Brien. Between 1978 and 1985, Casbo was the foundation of the birthday celebrations for the late Lyndon F. Sampson Burnham, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Some of the celebratory birthday shows were To My Son, A Legacy, Kengar, The Rebellion, and Futuristic. In 1986, Casbo played an integral role in the first death anniversary of the late President Burnham. Over the years, Rudy made sure that Casbo was well-traveled as they toured Suriname, Moscow, the United States, Brazil, Cuba, Canada, Barbados, Belize, Jamaica, Morocco, Cayenne, and the United Kingdom. In 1992, Rudy migrated from Guyana to the United States, and the band continued to perform nationally and internationally. He realized that he had to make some changes for the band's survivability because of the change of government in Guyana in 1994. He determined that there was no emphasis on culture in ways that promoted steel band music. And in 1995, he decided to move the band from Guyana to the United States. Since moving the band to the United States, Rudy has formed a youth arm of the band called the Young Acolytes, to which he calls the nursery to Casbo. The members of Young Acolytes are groomed as steel panists who eventually graduate and become adult members of Casbo. They have graced many stages in and out of New York with performances for Caribbean and other forums. A historical accomplishment for Casbo was in 2015, when it became the first band to grace the stage of the Apollo Theater in New York, where they were placed as the first runner-up. It is difficult to separate the name Rudy Bishop from Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel and Brass Orchestra. They just go together. In addition to winning many steel band competitions, Rudy has received many accolades for his dedication to the arts, as especially related to steel pan music. He is the recipient of awards, citations, proclamations, and trophies. He is respected by members of community-based organizations, such as the Guyana Cultural Association of New York, along with council and Congress members of New York, California, and Miami. Rudy is to be commended for his continued community service in the United States and Guyana. For the past 7 years, around the Christmas holiday season, he has returned to Guyana, where he hosts give backs to seniors and youth of Campton. This year, due to the pandemic, the give backs will be hosted after the Christmas holidays, when he plans to bring joy to members of his Campton community in Campbellville, Georgetown, Guyana. My friends, the incomparable Rudy Bishop, who has given his life service to our communities while keeping our arts alive with respect to steel pan music. But before I speak with him, let's take a peek at Rudy Bishop before we meet him in person.
Come see the world. Oh, you see it? What you for?
Right. All right, that brought a chuckle out of you, Rudy. Welcome. Welcome to Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. How are you?
I am very, very, very happy to
Yeah,
be on your show today. You know, it should not have been today, right?
right, right.
It should have been coming live from Guyana. But as it turned out, it's wonderful to be on the show and to be with you, Rose.
Glad. I'm glad we were able to work this out the way that it is.
Uh,
So, very, very respectful background, very impressive background. And I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for all that you have done and continue to do with respect to the preservation of the arts. I know you had a lot more in you.
just remain humble. I'm your humble servant, just doing God's wishes for wherever community, as the old man I call him always says, wherever you place your at, that's your home. Right now, this is my home, and whatever I could do to help the community that I reside in and surroundings, I continue. And as long as there's life, I will continue.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So let me ask you, let's go down memory lane for a bit. As a boy, how was it growing up in Kitty for you?
Well, you know, in Kitty, it is a small village. A matter of fact, they call it the first village. Because before it turned to Greater Georgetown, it used to be Kitty Village. You get Kitty Village, you get Pleasant Village, and the different villages going up till you reach to the first village, Victoria. And Kitty was the first village. But we hold Kitty very dear because everything that you wanted was in Kitty. There was a market, there was a laboratory, there was a doctor, Dr. Bissessa was there. He has his practicing thing in Alexander Street. There was an abattoir where we butcher our own animals and transport them to the market. And there was a host of it. There was a post office. There was a police station, of course, to keep the peace. Of course, they couldn't keep us from out of trouble anyway. And so many other things. Banks, that was so Kitty in itself was like another little Georgetown. You then had to leave Kitty to go any part. And of course, that was the hub. The thing I remember most is every child in Kitty, every one of us had a false name. Of course, mine is Boise, as you are. Boise came in two different ways. One was my father, because he was so thrifty, they call him Zing. So my uncle them and the elders would say, Boy Zing. But my godmother, who was Indian, my Dibal, who is also related to Vic and Sonali and Rudy and Sonali, we all grew up in Pike Street, Kitty, on the same block, right there. She gave me the name Boy Z because of her other grandson who named Boy Z. So she called me the boy to Boy Z. So it was Boy Z come in two fractions. The Indian side Boy Z and the Afro side Young Zing, Boy Zing. So
You very important point there, and I know it's a Caribbean thing. It's something in the Caribbean region. Everybody had a fox name. Rock with Limp Limpy. So I mean, we were some ways unkind. Let me ask you: you grew up. You started playing music um, in the 60s, you got into the music business in the 60s. And I wanted to know, how did you learn about steel pan? How did you learn to play steel pan back then? How was it for you?
Well, you know, the band that you Bitcoin Invaders, one of the first bands that were created in Guyana. Apart from the Covadis and Bertram de Varel, who formed the first band in Guyana, who made the first band in Guyana. The Invaders from the Federation Yard, a lot of people don't know that it started in the Federation Yard by Dan Sandy Ford, and Barney Johnson and Muller and these guys played a major role.
Who was Federation Yard, Boise? Was it in Charlotte Street? Where was Federation Yard?
In Regent Street.
Right there, Regent Street?
Where the gas station is right now at the corner of Regent King Street, and going through that area around there.
All right.
On that side, we call it the Federation Yard. And, you know, people in and out, it's a lot of influx of people in and out. Some say it was good, some say it was bad, but it's indifferent. But it also brought out a lot of talent within that area from all over, all walks of Guyana. You could end up in Federation Yard. It later moved from Federation Yard and went into Charlotte Street. There's the one that you...
The one I remember, yes. Yeah.
There is the one that when we left Charlotte Street, we end up at Ma Rose. And Papa Rose, Papa Prince.
Yes, yeah.
That we black pudding and we sauce, so especially on the weekends. Yes. Where I reach, sometimes I reach a little late and so on, and next thing I hear Papa Prince say, "Oh God, look, young Bishop come here, I got it. No, he coming up. The pot done sell out and mobile in. I gotta wait for the second set."
That's right. And so he's actually talking about my parents here. He has me blushing. You know, my parents.
Yeah, I'll tell you. And you know, you was a little girl, you and your little botheration.
No,
oh my God. And up to now, when I go home, the first body is magic. Let me tell you, I said, you know, you sister turned a doctor, but your father, your mother wanted you to be a doctor. But you're so don't worry, I'm a big man, I don't think you could take off your belt and run me up the road. I said, don't even think about it.
Yeah, well, good history there.
Yeah. So the entire family is well known to me, and I'm well known to the entire family because we all associated together.
We're like family. Yeah. Yep. Let me ask you, you played with El Toro and Skylarks, right?
El Toro is the first band that I played with.
Right.
But they got another story.
Okay.
I couldn't play the steel pan. My father didn't want me play. My mother didn't want me play because, you know, in those days, it was you carry a stigma by boys. Big boys who wear snap rim hat and walk with flick blade knives and so on. So it was detrimental to anybody in the society, the strata of society to partake in playing steel pans. But as a good, loving Christian, remember I had to go to chiropractic every Tuesday and Thursday, chiropractic. So I leave home with the intention of attending chiropractic, which I go eventually, but not before cutting through the schoolyard, Pollywax, but St. James Less Schoolyard, in Davis Street, into Garden Street, and a few houses down. There was the El Dorado Steel Orchestra. was housed, led by one of your dancing colleagues' brother, Bertie Douglas. The
Oh,
Douglas sisters, his brother.
you're talking about Andrea and Vivian Daniels, their brother.
That's right.
Wow. Yeah.
Of course, his father didn't want him to play either. Because he was a respected, trained operator. You know, in those days it was a big thing, the train running up from there at Stankenborg. And so when he come down and he heard that his son was involved with this steel band thing, he went into the yard and Bertie had to run. Because we were all young teenagers and so on, but none of our parents wanted us to partake in that. So my initiation to that is going through the Garden Street on the way to St. James Gillette's Church for choir practice.
Yeah.
And so happened that I end up a Panis.
Now, how did it go with Skylarks? Because it's from Skylarks, right? There was some disagreement, some financial disagreement, and it's from that financial disagreement that you went off on your own.
Skylark came long after many other bands. El Dorado, El Toro was the first band that I joined. But after El Toro, I venture off into, I played in Peter DeGar band, the UF band, down in Charleston. From there, and this is where I get my first inclination of big band temperament and big band tunes. I move over to Bar Street, All Boys Town, where the Kaituckians, led by Sherwin Burnham, the late great Sherwin Burnham, was head of that organization. And there I get my first insight of playing classical music and things like that. Then after that, I moved from there and I went and we formed another boy, Virgil and his brothers formed another band we call the Bell Boys. Of course, with this band I was able to, because this was like a civil servant kind of band. All the boys were in the civil service, who was not PhD, was at teachers and so on. And we all come together and form the Bell Boys, which a couple of years after become defunct. And I move on, I went on to the Kaituckians, and then Moon Glows. It's after Moon Glows that I was approached to organize for the Skylarks, for the Tawny Skylarks. And I did by acquiring sponsorship by then Rohamon Soda Factory. And we came out in no glee. I think we brought tour that year at the LCP fair. It was a big competition there, you know, all the different arts and culture, including all the Calypsonians from Sparrow and Kitchen, and they all come down for that big occasion. And there was the competition there, and we played back to Africa, and the band brought tour on that year. And it was that confusion after returning home that led to I didn't even know what the whole band just disintegrate. Because some people went this way, some went that way, and a couple of the boys who some used to play with the Bell Boys came to me and they indicated that we, you know, I said, you know, I enable this kind of confusion. If my father or my mother hear about this, it's the end of me. I can't go home. So I think we ought to come together, and this is where me and Philbert Moore come together. And we started the Atlantic Symphony, as I indicated, and you indicated in your preamble, that it started on the Kitty Foreshore. There was this bandstand where we used to do our little plateau. Then again, plot the maypole and do the different things on that ground. And it was on that location that the band got its name, Atlantic Symphony.
Yep. Let me ask you a quick question here. I think others might want to know. Do you read music?
Well, I was self-taught. After me and Philbert Moore had the split, because he was the arranger, I went and I bought myself music books and arrange a book in terms of arrangements, like harmony and melody, teach yourself music, and different books that I could read the score, but not as quick as Desmond Fraser or one of the more elaborate musicians. As I indicate to you, I spent 2 years at UG doing music, but because things didn't going as it ought to be with culture in Guyana at the time, in 92, after 92, I decided to migrate, and I didn't get to finish that program.
All right, so we'll come back to that. But you know, what you just said, a lot of musicians go through it, and we just have talented artists who are self-taught in so many areas. So I am thinking of Jege. Jege was somebody who taught himself music. You know, he didn't have any formal training. So like yourself, you guys are, you know, icons in your own right. And it's really inspiring to hear that despite you were not formally trained to read music, you taught yourself, and look at you now.
And the Jagger you're talking about, you know, he was part of the troupe.
Yes. We'll talk about that in a minute, though.
You know, he was part of the troupe. And only this morning, I'm going through the albums, and there is Mr. Winston Jagger Happy on the track as a man. The track that is as a man. Yeah. Yep. 1 and 2. Wow. So he's on the album as well.
All right, let's take a peek at some more of you, and then we'll come back and talk some more. A little snippet. We're teasing them along the way. So some of those pictures there, you're standing up in front doing your thing, right? In the pictures, we see that. I am wondering that, we know that as a band leader, you, Rudy, are the conductor. We see you every time. And to me, I am not sure that many others, I'm not sure that we understand what a conductor does. I'm thinking that you have to know music for sure, right? But what is involved when we see you standing before the band and you're doing your thing? And in other words, what do you have to know to be a conductor? What do you have to know? Because it looks easy. You know, like if you can just stand up in front and da, 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 you know, and I don't mean to make light of it, but I am just describing what I see.
Now, you hit the point because what happened there, most conductors carry the title as maestro, and most conductors, you see them with a baton. But if you look at Rudy Bishop, you would see at all times, because I am not qualified to be, even though people say maestro, I'm not qualified. And until such time that I attain that status, I will continue to be the ordinary Rudy Bishop conductor of the Chronic Atlantic Symphony. But the most important thing, most of those conductors you see, there's a conductor score in front of them. And they're looking at that score, and there's the button, and they're following the music from that score. With me, the score is in my head. Every iota, every little point, every little pause, every little break is in my head. Every instrument that play a particular part, you keep listening for. And as the part comes around, you might see at times I point to that particular part because the point is there. So it's something that you have to. All the tunes, and we played at least about 30 different classical tunes, have to be registered and recorded in my head. So not only that the pan players, the pianists, as they remember all the notes that have to be struck at the point in time, so is the conductor. He has to remember every iota of piece of that tune to conduct the band in time.
You know, I'm just fascinated hearing you describe it, because in some ways, as dancers too, as choreographers, we're doing the same thing. You know, we're looking for the dynamics in the music. We're looking at who is going to be, you know, going with the bass, who is going to be going with the piano, who is going to be going with the attacking movement, flowing movements. The music is dictating us to move. So I get it. And I am just fascinated, you know, by the fact that the pianist and the conductor, you have to, it takes a lot to remember. And many don't understand the intricacies of the arts. And I don't think our parents did. That's why, you know, they thought that it was worthwhile to do, but if they only knew, and I'm sure that for you too, your parents, especially your dad, came through and realized that it was worthwhile somewhere along the line.
And let me stick a pin there. You know, you never get to really see. My mom did, but my father, he died a little earlier. Matter of fact, just after independence in 1966. He died in 67. Wow. So you never really get to see the boy that he never wanted to be part and parcel of, able to achieve so much. I could not have seen the world had I not been a pianist.
But you know what? I'm sure mommy would say to you, if your dad would see you now or something like that.
He always did. I only hope that he could have seen what she's seen, because the first time when I called her, I was in Russia. And are you calling now, son? I say, yes, because I'm passing through America on the way to Russia. He said, oh God, you're going to the communist country. I say, yes, but it's a cultural exchange. How you go? I said, it's a cultural exchange between the two countries. And so they sent a troop to Guyana, and I was honored to be part of the troop going to Russia. So even then, you know, because the Cold War was on, and a matter of fact, it's the only band ever to grace the Soviet Union. We went to Russia, we went to Kiev, we went to Luxembourg, we went to, you know, you call it, but we were part of that epithet.
So one of the things that I know, and reading your bio reinforced it, is that with the pan culture, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to really raise the band, right? So there are tuners and arrangers and working with the panist, you, the conductor, and everybody else, even costume. I want to ask, though, for clarification for me and those who maybe don't know, what is the difference between a tuner and an arranger? Is there a difference?
There's a big difference.
Okay.
The tuner is the architect of the instrument. He makes the instrument. The arranger is the music man who goes to whatever score and take piece of that music and put it together. There's some who, like Philbert Moore, is a musical arranger and also a tuner. So he carry both caps.
Okay.
Like Calvin White, he is strictly tuned. And he tuned the pans from scratch, like we say, nursing from a baby to an adult. That was Calvin White.
Let me ask you. So they get this piece of drum. And I don't mean it in a derogatory way at all. So please don't take it that way. So the tuner gets this drum, what he does with it. I know that the drum is configured in a particular way and all of that. Now, is the tuner configuring this drum in a way based on the section of the band that this particular drum is going to be played in?
Well, you see, the steel pan is like the conventional band, an orchestra. Every instrument represents one of those instruments in the conventional band. For instance, the tenor pan, we call the first pan, is like the first violin.
Okay.
The alto pan, or the double first, is like the second violin. The alto pan, which is as they go down in size. Now the first pan is like this, then the double first like this. That's the cut in different dimensions. You get different songs, and different notes are placed in different positions on each pan. And once that has been designed in whatever form, you cut it to the required length. You get the first pan, you get the double first pan, you get the tenor pan, you get the alto pan, then you get the we call the guitar pans, which would be like the going into the bass, actually, like the viola and the bass and things like that. So each represent one of those conventional instruments. It also represents, like as I said, the horns, the clarinet, the horns, the trombone, the tuba. It all represents a conventional instrument. A matter of fact, while I was in Africa, I was taken to a woodwind store where all those instruments you seeing now that is being made by brass, it was all created out of wood. That's why they call it woodwind instruments. In Africa, I saw this with my own eyes. woodwind instruments that created the same kind of sound that the European went there and they came back and they make it out of brass and different but this the xylophone that you see, it was there out of wood.
Yeah.
In Africa.
Yeah.
So all those instruments came out of Africa.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing the instrument in front of me because I met some guys from West Africa who I do work with through Brooklyn Arts Council, and the xylophone-like instrument. It's such a sweet thing, and it's fascinating to watch them play it. And the sound that is so familiar and different. You know, the instrument itself, it's different, but it's the foundation of what we do. Let me ask you this. You dropped Calvin White's name just now. And I know Calvin White, the late Calvin White, because you told me that he recently died. I was so sorry, so shocked.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned him, and I remember of that back in the day. This is what I remember as a child. Bitco Invaders or Demba Invaders or whatever they call, because the names of the bands change, right? And then you would see the same faces. That was funny. So you had Bitco or Demba Invaders or whatever the name they end up to be called along the way in competition with Casbo, right? Or with Chronicle. That was a standing rivalry going there. But the funny thing is, when it's competition, there is rivalry. Of course,
sure.
Right? May the better band win, may the best band win. But then you guys had such an admirable relationship as artists, as panists. I'm wondering, how was it for you to go from competitors to allies back and forth, knowing that you both had band members watching you all?
Listen, it's just like you, Rose. In the dance school of itself,
Yes.
you always have people competing to reach the top, to be the best. And there always would be that, but you're friends. At the end of the dance, out of the dance company and out of the National School of Dance, when you all come out of there, they'll leave there in the dance room. It's the same thing with the steel pan. Or let's look at Muhammad Ali and Fraser and those. I mean, they're tearing up. This is even worse because it's blow for blow and punch for punch and knock down and get up. But at the end of it, they will embrace each other most times and said, you know what, we'll do this again. You're doing it now, but you understand, I want to return. And so it's the same thing, but not everybody hold it so dear. A lot of members, after losing, some could become violent, some become vociferous and want to fight and cuss out, and that was in the olden days. That I made a reference to Calvin even before he came to tune the pants for me. Because before Calvin, I tried Pemia, I tried Roy Geddes, I tried a couple of other tuners, and they didn't do a good job. Because for them, they feel that the pan, if I got the pan that they have, then it would be a different story time for competition. So what they do, they give you the worst tuned pans. So I explained to Calvin, I said, Calvin, the competition that we go to, it's not the instrument. It's not the instrument that is being judge. It's the person behind the instrument. Because, excuse me, we went to music festival in those days. And on stage, there's one grand piano. And all the people who playing classical or other musical pieces, we went on the same piano. And the adjudicator would indicate, because competitor number 2 or 3 was able to bring out the required composer's intention, she becomes or he becomes the winner. That's like the same thing with the pan. It's your arranger and the ability of the players, the panists, to bring out the composer's intention of the piece. It must not ever be the pan. Calvin understand that, and he agreed with me, even though some of his members didn't agree. As Roy Geddes tells them, say, yeah, the leader is a fool. He gonna make stick for Brocky back. He make sweet pan for Rudy Bishop.
Wow.
And now look what happened.
Wow. Wow.
Not me, but his pans. I made 2 pans. I took them and I put them in the gate of Camptown as a reminder to all who want to be part and parcel of that sort of conduct could not ever.
You know, Rudy, I ask you that question because yes, you made reference to us dancers, and yes, there was a competition between dance company members and Casbo members, but then we end up having same gig and we were on the stage together, we were performing in one show together. So
Yeah.
But the reason I asked though was because I know that the young ones are looking on from the back. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
You guys are leaders and they're watching from behind. And the bigger story, the bigger part of the story is that they were learning how to compete effectively, how to compete lovingly, how to compete without grudges, because we cannot be our best if we're not able to share in whatever energy and art that we are sharing. So I wanted to just bring that out as the reason why I asked that question. The other thing that I wanted to ask you was about Desmond Fraser. He was instrumental in switching this band, adding the big piece, the brass section, which really is the critical aspect of Casbo. I mean, it doesn't sound like a steel pan. When you hear Casbo music, it takes you someplace else. Talk a little bit to that, the inclusion of the brass section that Desmond Fraser was responsible for.
Yes, as I indicated, after me and Philbert Moore part ways and so on, I became the arranger of the band. And at the time, rocksteady and reggae, it didn't come full force. It was the ska and then rocksteady and things like this. And so there were simple tunes. You had to need much arrangements. So I jump on that right away because I was not the musical arranger to arrange these big symphonic pieces and so on. I could have arranged from ear sound and it would have come close, but you don't want something close, you want to be precise. And so I acquire Desmond Fraser, who more than most musicians, and they don't know this, Desmond Fraser has 2 8 grade from 1 to 8. It's a grade in music, got 2 from the school, the Royal School of Music. A lot of people don't know that most musicians stop at 5. Desmond got 2 8th grade. Not only that, but he plays not only the trumpet, which he's a master, the trombone, saxophone, tuba, he plays nearly all the wind instruments. So in that respect, he was a teacher in himself, because most of the young Soplantis and all these guys that we know was taught by Desmond Fraser. Keith Waite was taught by Desmond Fraser, because they were all young police recruits. Desmond was the man. A matter of fact, Desmond uses to arrange music for Barney Small in the police band. Desmond was seconded over to me after I took up the mantle to do the president, but before the president birthday concerts, any celebrity or any person of status coming into Guyana, the band will have to make an appearance to welcome them. Most of the presidents that you think about, whether it be Indira Gandhi, Fidel Castro, Nkrumah, all of those people. And of course, Muhammad Ali, the picture that you showed there, that was welcoming Muhammad Ali to Guyana. The band had to make that kind of appearance. And everything you could think about, any big opening, whether it be the glass factory, the Linden Highway, the new ferry, the Malali or whatever, the band had to be there. So it was important that at all times, because when these people come in, you have to play the anthems. And who would have arranged those anthems? I couldn't do it. So I had to acquire the skill of the person, a professional person, to do that. There's not an anthem that you think about, even the Chinese anthem we play. So you got to understand the need for a professional musician to be at the helm.
Yeah.
That was Desmond Fraser.
That's true leadership too. I mean, bringing in the experts where there is a need. True leadership there. Let's take another peek at your work, Rudy, or you, and then come back and talk some more. I'm enjoying this, totally having fun.
Oh, this is back in time. My daughter would say, throwback.
Let's look at some more of who Rudy is.
She got you on tour.
Rudy, we just saw some album covers there. And let me just say, for those of you who've joined us late, you're joining me, Rose October, and Arts, Culture, Things in Between. And the guest today is the one and only Rudy Bishop. Rudy, you have been in the business 58 years, you know. We just saw a few covers just now of the albums, of some of the albums that the band has done. And I heard you whispered, you know, the tour or something like that in the back end. What kept you going for so long, Rudy? What keeps you going?
You know, one of the things I really feel that keep the burning, to keep the fire, the flame, is to see the joy that it brings to so many less fortunate youths around and about, especially in the community. And as I indicated, I think when we was talking just before the program, that they I was awarded so many things for the work that I did in the Flatbush area, because you know the type of youths within the Flatbush area and what comes out, and from the time you hear Flatbush and East New York, there's a lot of different things happening. But we have I've confronted the youths in that area, and I'm very proud. I mean, I've trained thousands of youths in all different forms and fashion. But I'm so proud of the last group that I trained, the young acolytes. I'm so proud of that group because it was about 35 members, and each of those 35 members, they all attend colleges.
All right, so hold on that. Hold on that. We'll get to that. Hold on that. Because I want to ask you something else before we get into talking, excuse me, about the young acolytes. Sometime in the 90s, after your migration, you decided to move the band from Guyana to the US. So now you're getting why I asked you to hold back on young acolytes. This was a very brave move, Rudy, very brave move. And I'm wondering, aside from you assessing the cultural arena that Guyana had become in not embracing culture, not embracing the whole steel pan music, the aspect of our culture, what challenges did you face in making this bold move? Moving the band Caspo from Guyana to the US?
It was a challenge to just raise anchor and move on. But the same thing that I had in Guyana, I wanted to see if, especially in the New World, in a place where there's so much that is going on, and it's a new phenomenon. Because even though they had one and two bands around at the time, during the period, that they, like for Labor Day and things like this, and you would know because we came up for Labor Day, we played in the Labor Day '94. And the band Atlantic Symphony was part of that. It's after that Labor Day celebration, which myself and Claire Gorin put together. So we've had the first Guyanese band on the Parkway, right?
Which is the other thing.
That's right. It's after that that I decided, you know what? Maybe the best thing, and not only that, the bands, the home started to disintegrate. Like the Invaders and the Silvertones and the other bands that was fighting to stay afloat, they all went under. I said to myself, you know, if I migrate and leave, and there's a lot of youngsters there too, who have no idea what they would have done without the band being there. So it's just, instead of I moving myself away and coming out and leaving all of them, I decided I told them all, and even some who did not came up. I tell all, I said, listen, band is going to America. I'm not too sure if it will be returning to Guyana in the distant future. But I will take all of you with me. And I did. A couple of those guys decide, well, you know, they had a family and they can't leave the family and blah, blah, so they didn't. But I was happy to know that I brought all of them, and most of them are well off. They're doing, who are not bank managers, who are not engineers, who are not, you know, within that group that I brought out, who's not in the airline field as managers and so on. They all move on, but it's now better to fend for themselves and family, as if I'd leave them home. So there are, when you see Campton at the band room there, and all those guys, as a matter of fact, they had a special thank you for me, which I didn't even know of, where they all get together and say, you know, we got to give thanks to this man who brought us here, who is responsible for us and responsible for us being what we are today. Let's pay homage and pay thanks to him.
You know,
I didn't know.
but you know,
but these are the things that make me feel real great. And I'm so happy that I made a decision for the transition from Guyana to America. Of course, it didn't end there. It
right.
didn't end there. And I'll tell you a little bit more.
Let me say this. I want to outwardly say thank you. Thank you for saving lives of the youth. Because I will ask our viewers to indulge in a bit. Arts is so much more than learning a dance movement, learning how to play the first pan, know to play a tenor. It's so much more. It's self-discipline, it's life. It's really about life's training. And for you to be consistent doing what you have done, saving the lives, literally saving the lives of youth, because you know what? In that art form, and I'm speaking from personal experience as a dancer, in learning that art form, you're distracted from other things that can take you down the wrong.
Sure.
Thank you. And the other piece that I wanted to bring into this conversation, Rudy, is the fact that in this country, especially, the life of an artist, you know,
it easy.
goes on the side, and it's the 9 to 5 that really keeps us going, right? So the art on the side, unless some fairy godmother, godfather, or something, some divine intervention happens for us, and we're uplifted and we're there and we don't have to worry.
You win a lotto? Or you
don't have to spend the lotto money after you've won it. But, you know, you were able to retain those band members, the ones who were dedicated. And of course, life happens, you would lose some. So retention might have been an issue. Yet, you came up with this grand idea of the young acolytes, right? And I am thinking, this is brilliant, brilliant. How was it for you to start the young acolytes?
You know, it's funny. As a Christian, as I told you, remember I started my musical journey as a choir boy. I was in the choir of St. James Gilles Church, where I had to attend choir practice and giving out of communion cards in those days, and Bible classes and everything else. So I had a 5-week schedule when this church is concerned. But don't forget, I used to steal a couple of hours out of the 5 days. On those 2 days that I would have been allowed to go to choir practice and get ready to go to the panyard. But you know, the thing about that, and you hit the nail on the head when you indicate that it is so much more going on in the minds of the youth. As I indicated, this is why I built Campton, because there's so much talent when I went over to the Gamble housing scheme, and I see so much talent within the area that only needed to be nurtured and blossom into something beautiful. A matter of fact, me and the late President Burnham had a disagreement. The Campton ground that is now the epitome of all the activities in Campbellville, and the youth center that I built. When I was building it, everybody said, "We should put up a big house, a big house." I didn't let them know. And when I'm done, I invite the women's maybe garden and the women's union and the mothers Toastmasters and all of them to be part of it. I said, upstairs is the community center. I even had a library there for the library, and downstairs would be the band room and a kitchenette for the girls to learn to cook and do other culinary arts. So we had all of that in Campton. And so I defied the president. And I told him, I said, unless we get some form of recreational facilities within the community, the residents of the same community will not be able to live in peace, because those children that is not harnessed in time will become criminals. And I've seen it happening to Guyana right now, because there's not the type of activities that they're accustomed to. They take away the culture, they take away this, they won't have it. And so they're out on the street drop out from school, doing nothing. And I said, right now we have is juvenile delinquency. You don't have hardened criminals. Where the ground is was supposed to be a police station, a supermarket, and other things, a road going through, cutting through the ground to go through to University of Guyana and those things. He said, but what are you going to do with that? I said, but if you don't do it, it's a choice. I said, between the KTC wall that we have a playground, there's no more. The only thing they had was Bonnie Finance ground, and there's lock up at 6 o'clock. And the other thing is all the way down into Bel Air. We have a long tennis court and this and so on. And I'm saying that Black people, children, or the poorer people can't go over there and play. So if you don't do it, then what we're going to have, they're going to grow from juveniles delinquency into hardened criminals, and this is what's going to happen.
You know, Rudy, again, man, listen, I am so glad to hear you speak openly about this, because you're not just speaking openly about it, you're doing something about it too. And that's why another reason I'm so happy we're having this conversation, because your work is not selfish work. You're thinking about the communities at large. And I did say communities, because you're doing it on the ground in Guyana, you're doing it on the ground here. Hence, we have Campton in Guyana, we have the young acolytes here, and it's, guess what? Your work is consistent. So nobody could tell you anything different. Your work is consistent, because the work with the acolytes here and the work with the young ones in Guyana on Campton, they mirror. Again, the theme is about saving lives. And listen, if they didn't say it to you, I'm saying it to you. I see folks in the chat saying thank you. You know, Irvin Washington, Claire Goring, Verna Walcott, your daughter Andrea, you know, Susan, Angela, and quite a few others, of course, including Pauline. You know, just bigging up the work that you do, and you have bragging rights because you're doing it. One last question before we look at some more of your work.
So before you go into that question, that was only to bring you to the question when you asked how the Young Acolyte is formed. I was The band was housed in Queens at a place called the Woman of Faith. And there again, a lot of youngsters from within the Queens area, that area around uh, Ozone and the other parts, I started to train a group of the youths from across there. Father Harrison, Eric Harrison, went on the internet or wherever, and he saw the work that I was doing, and he made a call to me to come over to the church to have a discussion. The honest truth is, I think it's God. And the only God works in the same mysterious ways. I went and I saw Father Harrison. He said, you know, Mr. Bishop, I was reading an article where you did so much for the youths in your area and back home and so on. He said, this area is being deemed as a downtrodden area, and the youths is all this. I was wondering, I said, you know, I was thinking about having like the band, a band here to see if we could bring in some of the youths that we got around and things like this. What do you think about it? I say it's a good thing, but the first thing you're gonna need is instruments. He said, not to worry with that. You know, we can try to raise the funds somewhere or other. But in the meantime, you could bring your pants over. I've just made some new brand pants. He said, you could, I said, I didn't hear you. I could what? He said, but in the meantime, you could bring your pants over. You know, I said, but they're new pants. And if I bring them over, most likely to train the youths on them, they can damage. And if they got a life of 5, 10 years, if it lasts 2 years, hey, you know, not to worry, man, we will repellish them. We'll get more and so on. So I said, oh, I think about it and so on. So I thought the man forgot everything. And I said, about 2 days after, he called again. He said, Mr. Bishop, I ain't hear from you. I said, well, you know, as I tell you, you got to get pants and so on. And things. Yeah, I thought we spoke about that because I told you that whatever damage or whatever, you know, you could bring them over. I said, the next thing, we'll have to get some place to rehearse. He said, well, you know, there's upstairs where GCA.
Okay, at St. Stephen's.
He said, well, you got a room upstairs. I said, but you can't keep climbing the stairs with all those big instruments and so on and things. He said, well, you know, leave that to me. And the next day he called again. He said, I found the place. I said, where? He said, downstairs is a bowling alley. It's not in use. So come over and see it and see if it would not be. I think it would be. And I went over. And as I said, it's God.
Yeah.
You know, I pack up, leave Women of Faith, and brought all those instruments there and started the movement. Not only the band, but a youth group for basketball and the girls club, and it was nearly 100 and something youths came out.
Wow.
And we had a Friday night thing going there every Friday night. And from the upstairs with the different activities, some of them mingled down into the band room. And there was the young acolytes.
There you go.
As I indicate, the young acolytes, this last group that I train up here, when Marky Markovich saw what was happening in the Flatbush area, he came in. He and a couple of the councilmen and so on and things. And there's not, Claire will tell you too, anything as borough president he had, the young acolytes had to be part and parcel of it. And before he leave office, he indicated on his councillors to ensure that the name Chronicle Atlantic Symphony is enshrined in Brooklyn, in the records and the tablets of Brooklyn. Every 25th day of May is Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Day in Brooklyn.
Nice, nice, nice.
It's right here. It's right here. The proclamation is right there.
Yes, I like that corner loves.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
And, some more of your work, come back and talk. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Rose October, sitting with the incomparable Rudy Bishop. Let's
humble, the humble Rudy Bishop.
Let's take a peek at Rudy.
The stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till He appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn.
Aha, a taste of, oh, Chronicle, and that was Captain
Cody Hodge.
Yeah, Captain Cody Hodges, and I think there's another piece with Don Schultz also. Yep. But let me ask you this though. I was hoping that we could have gotten some of this to show, but I don't think we'll be able to get it. There's a piece of a performance, I think it was, oh gosh, something to do with the Guyanas in Cayenne, that trip to Cayenne, where you had the band playing, right? You had singers, right, on the stage like Compton and Don, and you also had dancers on stage all at once. This whole spectacle, you're getting everything for the price of one. You know, Casbo in its entirety. I have to ask you about a little bit about dance. Can't help myself, you know. And one of the things that happened, you were actually pushed to think out of the box and get dance as a part of it, because Casbo was touring with the Ghana National Dance Company. And you guys were going to Suriname, I think, if I remember what you shared with me. And you approached the then chairman, the late Lynette Dolphin, to have the dance company go with you guys to Suriname. And she said no. You asked Don Schultz. Don Schultz came on. She became the lead singer and all of that. But then you asked Neil Haywood, who was a trailblazer in his own right, to bring together a troupe for Casbo, and Casbo Dance Troupe was born. Many of our dance colleagues, I would say, for those of us from Dance Company, we all did shows together as one. But I wanted to ask you about what did you envision as a musician, as a leader of a steel pan movement? What did you envision for Casbo, for the dance, Casbo's dance troupe, in becoming a part of Casbo at large? I'm wondering, because that was a brilliant idea back then.
Well, you know, the dance troupe that you talk about in French Guiana, that was in 1986.
Yeah,
1986. But before that, we have already, the dance troupe has already been nurtured and groomed into even a larger compart of Casbo, because they made the first North American tour. I don't know if you remember Howard. Howard was part of that troupe.
Howard Daly?
Yes, he left and he went back to Jamaica, I think he went, along with Desiree.
Yeah, Desiree Ali. Desiree Ali.
Desiree Ali.
Yeah.
Yes. And we had Jasper Adams, and we had Matt Bean.
Yep. Yeah, Rudolph.
And we had Neil Haywood. And we had
Oral
Welshman.
Yes.
And we had Beverly.
Beverly Hunt. Yes.
So they were the first part of the dance troupe, and they were all professional dancers.
Yes.
Right? And this is when Neil, I remember well, brought Philip, even though he was ill,
Philip McClintock,
to come into Campton and teach them the Sahani dance.
Yes, yes, yes.
Which took, because I couldn't get the Indian dance company, the Indian Culture Center, because all the tours that I went on, I took Indian dances with me too. You see, I wanted a full cultural display of what Guyana looked like, and it was a land of 6 races. So I had on Suriname tour and French Guiana tour, I had the Indian Culture Center had a troupe. When Dolphin refused to send the National Culture Center, I had the Indian company, and then I formed the other company to go with the two in
Yeah.
Christine Kumash,
Yeah.
who went on to win the Diwali contest and so on, was my signature
Wow.
whole female dancer, and she was part of the culture group. But
Wow.
before her, I had Dolly Bash, and this way back in the early 70s.
Wow.
And our brother, I put him first on stage, Kitty Welfare Center, to do It's Not Unusual,
I love,
Sam Bash.
love
So
it.
I always integrate, I always mix
Yeah.
the culture. I never divert.
Talking about mixing the culture, right? Don Schultz. Every time I think of Don Schultz, it's many rains ago for me. You know,
Yes.
always many rains ago for me. That would always be my best.
To me, is a Noche Vaichiga. The Brazilian man who wrote that tune after he heard Don version of a Noche Vaichiga, came over and he said, had he only known of her before, she would have been the original singer.
Yeah. And we saw Compton just now. We saw slash heard Compton.
Really.
And I'm really bringing credence to what you just mentioned in terms of being inclusive where the culture is concerned, because we had the singers, right, with Caspo. We also had the actors and actresses, right? Desiree Edgell, Margaret Lawrence, Jasper Adams, Leon Saul, you know, all of these folks.
Howard Lorimer.
I need to start naming names because then you forget.
Gordon Marshall.
Going. Yes.
You know, they all and they all play an integral part. And this is why to this day, when I go home, Desiree's office, this be like my office. Whatever I do in Guyana, and she's still part and parcel of it. Because if you look, we might have seen pics of her as the MC, the host, the MC hosting the
give back.
give back. And she's always there. Maggie is there. Big Red is there. They're all there.
Yeah.
To give back because she remember Campton as well. Because most of the rehearsals that take place during the present body show, any big concert we coming up, used to be held upstairs at Campton.
Big up Caspo, big up Rudy Bishop and all the work that he's done. And Carol just reminded us, Andrea just reminded us, Henry Rodney too. Let's take a quick peek at more of Rudy Bishop and Caspo. For those of you who've joined us late, I'm Rose October sitting with the humble Rudy Bishop. Let's take a peek.
I'm glad you mentioned humble now. Me. Pauline. Pauline. Pauline.
I'm glad we got a chance to show the dancers. I am so happy. That choreography, was it by Philip McClintock? Rudy?
Yes, it was.
Yes, the late Philip McClintock, the one and only, the one and only, what we would say in Guyana, Afro-Guyanese, masterful at Kathak, formerly trained in India, and we were blessed to call him ours. Now, I want to quickly look and emphasis on quickly because these 2 hours go by so fast. You know, Casbo has traveled the world. Suriname, Moscow, United States, Brazil, Cuba, Canada, Barbados, Belize, Jamaica, Morocco, Cayenne, United Kingdom. I mean, traveled really extensively. I'm wondering, how were you able to do this? Did you have sponsors? And while you think about the sponsors, tell me which was the most memorable tour for you?
Well, most of those were not sponsored tour, you know, they were cultural exchange, as we call them. And Barnum, in my mind, was a very, he liked, as I said, he liked to show off, as he called it, homegrown and good. And so he recognized what was happening, what I was doing, and he wanted to share that with the rest of the world. So when they would send gifts and things like that to him, he would then in turn return the kindness by sending the band to do performances for these countries. Mm-hmm. So it was most like exchanges.
Which was your most memorable tour of all the tours that you've done? I know that might be a hard one.
The most memorable would be Brazil.
Why?
It's the longest, and it's one of the bittersweet because the person who organized it did not live up to expectation, and so we find there was a lot of difficulty in it. And even through the difficulty, we was able to come out successful. It was a beautiful tour. Okay. But we had some ups and downs, which we overcame. And this is why when I came back, I had the first big show, the first big return show, as you know, of the From Love show, as we call it, From Brazil with Love.
Yeah.
And that again is one that started most of the love shows that we had at the Culture Center. But the most successful would be the first and second tour of North America, when we were invited by the mayor of Ottawa to participate in that country expo and to perform for the oldest cathedral in Ottawa and to perform in the Canadian House of Parliament.
Wow. That's nice. You guys have been around the block, so to speak. Now, I have to ask you this question. I am wondering, when the band is making all of these tours, what is happening with respect to employment for the band members? How are they dealing with that? Because we're talking about adult men.
And women.
And women, yes.
Well, one of the good things, and this is one of the things that you had to admire Lyndon Fabs Sampson Bonham for. Most of those guys and girls were employed. They were either, as I tell you again, they were either employed as civil servants or in some other profession. And what would happen is during that period, they would be seconded over to the band to make these tours and these trips.
Wow.
And on their return, there is where the salary will be waiting for them on their arrival. So they wasn't missing out on anything.
Want to hear something? I never knew that. I never knew that, Rudy. I never knew that. I know for the dance company, we got paid through Department of Culture. We got paid. We were salaried employees, but I did not know that that was the arrangement for the members of CASBO at large. Didn't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
I insure, and those who were not employed, they were paid because I was the organizer of the Steel Band Association. They were paid well, a per diem. On their arrival, they all had something to gain through the Steel Band Association.
Wow. Love it. Love it. Love it. So
And
believe
this is why they need to have the Steel Band Association reorganized and up and active. It's the only thing that could get the steel band back on its feet and get the movement going again.
well, I hope you're able to do that, but that's for a whole different talk show, you know, because no, and I don't mean it in a facetious way, but because it's a struggle to keep culture alive now. And that's what I mean. But
Yep.
like I said, that's a whole different program. Let's take another quick peek at Rudy and Casbo, and then we come back and we fold this over nicely. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm sitting with the humble Rudy Bishop.
Thank you for using that that phrase, humble.
All right. So you're getting a little taste of Christmas. Compliments of Cosbo. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Cosbo. For those of you who've just joined us, I'm Rose October, sitting with Rudy Bishop of Concord Atlantic Steel, Symphony Steel and Brass Orchestra. And you know, when I say Cosbo, though, when I say Cosbo, I'm thinking musicians and dancers. You know, I'm thinking musicians, singers, musicians as the instrumentalists, the pianist, right? The singers, the dancers, you, the conductor. I am thinking everybody when I.
Yes, but this is why you have to say it through, because Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Steel and Brass Orchestra, stop at Cosbo, and
true.
I don't ever forget the dancers and the actors and the, yeah, got it.
Yes. Cosbo and True. Stand corrected. So, Rudy, you've received, as one of my friends would say, numerous. That's a made-up word, people, so don't come for me. Numerous accolades for your work, and rightfully so. What is your most cherished recognition as we bring this to a close?
I think this proclamation.
What it says?
It's from the United States Congress.
Okay.
It was given to me by Yvette Clark.
Okay.
In recognition of the work that I've done in America. Mm-hmm. And so it is signed by all the persons who are responsible for the particular aspect of the Congress. So she get them all to document it, sign it, and made the proclamation to me. And this was done through HERO, the organization that goes back to Guyana and around the Caribbean, giving help and aid to the sick and needy.
Yeah. Health and yeah.
They wrote to her and recognized the work that I'm doing. And it went up to the Congress, House of Congress, and Yvette Clark get them all to signature. So even, I mean, I'm from Guyana and I love my country to death, but to be awarded and recognized by the United States House of Congress, I think is one of the greatest achievements anyone will have. I remember the country, Guyana, receiving one of that and attaining its 50th anniversary.
You know, I join countrymen and women of Guyana in applauding you and saying thank you. I join brothers and sisters from the Caribbean region in saying thank you. I join brothers and sisters from the Western world to say thank you, from Europe. Thank you from around the world, man. Thank you for the work that you've done. You are a true community servant. Hands down, Rudy. True community servant. And you've gone to Guyana, engaged in the give back. We've talked about that, to the seniors and the youths of Campton. You already told us that there's so many different reasons that you've done this, and I think we get it. We understand the importance of saving the lives of the youths and recognizing that we have to still upkeep our seniors in our community. What are some future plans for CASBO and the young acolytes and all of the organizations where you're putting your magical touch on? What does the future hold for the world, for the community work that you do, Rudy?
Well, you know, I'll indicate that in a couple of days I'll be leaving for Guyana. I didn't get to go for Christmas, which the normally does every Sunday before Christmas. I normally have a big luncheon for the seniors and a hamper, a food hamper, which I give to the seniors for their Christmas cheers. But I couldn't get to move around as I should. Couldn't get home for the Christmas holidays, to do it in time for the Christmas holidays. But bet your life I'll be doing it for the New Year's. So I know they're looking forward to the Christmas cheers, but in this case, this time it will be in the New Year. But following that, after 25 years, the Chronicle Atlantic Symphony will have part of its holdings back in Guyana.
I wanted you to say it. I didn't want to say it.
The Chronicle Atlantic Symphony will be returning to Guyana. The Chronicle Atlantic Symphony Guyana, Chronicle Atlantic Symphony USA.
Yes.
So I'm returning because a number of the older members has migrated them back home, like Desmond Fraser and Ivor and Keith, and they're back home. And they're all waiting and wishing and hoping that the day would come when they will be back in the Campton facilities reorganizing. Because as I tell you, when I give the give back, myself and my daughters get together and we give school hampers to the kids. We cater, I think it was for 100 kids. But when the amount of children and parents turn up at Campton, it's a good thing that my two daughters did come down with their aspect of it. We were able to give out at least 300.
Yep. Well, give them shout out. One of the daughters is Andrea. I don't know your other daughter's name. What is her name?
Samantha and Alexis.
Okay. Samantha and Alexis, thank you for your support.
They were there and they gave. And I made a promise that I will try to continue in that trade.
Yep.
And the first thing I'm doing, I've already sent down books to reorganize and to restart the Campton Library.
Love
so
it.
that kids could go up there and they could study for their exams and things like that. So apart from having the band, because there's so much of youths in Campton just idly walking, you know, that I think I should go back and try to harness some of their energy and put them back in true stead of what Campton stands for.
Much appreciation, and to the guys waiting, you know, the Desmond Frasers. It truly takes a village to raise a child.
Yep.
Speaking that African poem, African proverb, come alive. Rudy, I can't thank you enough for for sitting and having such candid conversation with me while we learn from you. That is the piece that I really like in sitting and doing arts, culture, and things in between. So I would like to say from me and the viewers, thank you for coming by. Thank you for the work that you have done. Thank you for the work that you are doing. And thank you for the work that you will be continuing.
Little Maros, your Mama Rose would have been so happy to see little Maros, who used to be running around about interviewing us. So I'm so happy, as I indicate from the inception, so happy to be part and parcel of your arts, culture, and things in between. I drop in between to be part and parcel of it. Anyhow, so thanks to you and everyone else. I know Claire and the whole of the GC is watching this program. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and thanks for everything else.
Blessings, blessings. So as I bring the program to a close today, I just said my big, huge thank you to the honored guest, Rudy Bishop, panist, conductor, entrepreneur, giver backer, you know, you name it, he has done it, philanthropist, supporter, community servant, so many different hats he wears, and we can take some knowledge from what he has been doing, what he's continuing to do, and really see how we can repackage it and do the same. I just want to also say to viewership, thank you for stopping by today. Really appreciate that you found the time to stop by. For those of you who will be viewing the recorded version of the show today, thank you too for doing that, because I know that not everyone is available on Sundays 3 to 5. I would like to say thank you to Claire Goring, who does the flyer religiously every week. I can't stop shouting Claire Goring out. Marcia Gordon, who is instrumental in moving the interviews to YouTube. Yasu Narayan, who's working on the website. Dr. Raul Manzano, who hand painted the logo for the website. Thank you all. And I want to thank everybody for supporting my program, Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. It's my COVID project. I got bored when COVID happened, and I decided that I needed to do something for me so that I can keep my sanity. And this is where this program was birthed. But before I end, the biggest thank you I have to give is to Raul De Silva, the man behind the scenes who's making all of this happen. And Raul, I can't thank you enough. We came together, I shared my idea with you, and you said, yes, no problem. Free of charge, he's doing this. Can't. So to all of you out there, I wish you all the best. Please encourage your friends to view the recordings, and hopefully you'll bring a friend next week, Sunday at 3, and we sit until 5 on Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. I'm your host, Rose October. Bye for now, and have a very pleasant and productive week ahead.
Yay.